It's 5:45 p.m., which means it's time for BCTV's Nightly News Roundup. I'm Roland Boyden, and this is 5:45 Live. Getting ready to head into the weekend here. We'll take you through the next 15 minutes into the regularly scheduled 6 o'clock news. Talk a little bit more about that school safety scare. Everybody's still looking for answers. We talked to Superintendent Ron Stahley about the call to make this decision happen. The ladies of the Shut It Down Vermont Yankee Affinity Group have been arrested again, and we'll talk a little bit about the Dummerston gravel pit. An Act 250 hearing may have calmed the nerves of some residents living in close proximity to the proposed site for this new gravel adventure. All that and more. Remember, we do it in 15 minutes or less, so stick with us right here on 5:45 Live.
Guilty again, Francis.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this February 1st, launching into one of the greatest months of the year. Welcome back to this February 1st, 2013 edition of 5:45 Live. I'm Roland Boyden. That's footage of members of the high-profile anti-Vermont Yankee affinity group Shut It Down, leaving Windham District Court this past November after being fined for their post-Hurricane Irene protest that involved chaining shut the entrance gates to Vermont Yankees nuclear plant facilities in Vernon. At age 92, that was the group's senior member, Francis Crow, accepting a congratulations for receiving a guilty sentence. The 6 women charged collected a total of nearly $4,000 in fines, something they told reporters following the trial they had no intention of paying. But after an outpouring of financial support from more than 60 groups and individuals across the region, the women have found their debt to society paid, at least for the moment, though they quickly followed up their fine-paying activities with more arrests, as this week they were again out at Vermont Yankees administrative offices in Brattleboro. They were joined by supporters at the Wells Fountain this past week as well to celebrate their latest arrest. Let's take a look.
The only sane thing to do is for the people to get together and to shut it down.
When you're losing all your hair.
Bring your noisy makers, and we're going to leaflet and parade down the streets of Brattleboro.
All right, we'll move on and talk a little bit about the school safety scare of last week. Still all the buzz. Words like lockdown were thrown around Facebook after parents across the region received calls from school administrators telling them that they were acting in response to a safety threat, but answers remain in short supply as parents and educators alike continue to grapple with that security scare everybody's talking about. After robocalls from principals across the area warned parents of a nondescript threat responsible for increased police presence and locked doors at the schools. And while all the press releases since have continued to keep private the identity of the threat's purveyor and the circumstances surrounding the threat, Ron Stahley spent as frank a 20 minutes as he could, really, with WTSA's Tim Johnson and 5:45 Live's content specialist extraordinaire Ian Keel.
The one thing that we tried to emphasize throughout this is that there was no direct threat to any of our schools or individuals. And, you know, I know that's not comforting for people, but that's as much information as we could provide. And I know it's been frustrating for parents. There are confidentiality rules. There's information that we obtain that might be limited. And so, over the weekend we spent a lot of time discussing with, again, law enforcement and legal consultation in terms of what is appropriate for us to be disseminating.
All right, moving on. It'll still need to squeak past the town meeting members, but the Guilford School Board voted to adopt a budget this past week that would save an estimated $33,000 annually for the town by closing the Guilford Middle School, sending the town's 7th and 8th graders to Brattleboro Area Middle School at a special meeting held to decide whether or not the issue would go to Australian ballot in March. Members of the school board talked about the cost, both financial and otherwise, to the proposal.
If it does come to pass, I think we'll have
the time to approve a budget. I think we'll have the time to first weigh in opinion. So I think that it's a good thing for either side of this issue.
All right, just a few more things to wrap up on this blitz of a 545 Live weekend edition as we get ready to send you out into a gallery walk-tastic downtown scene. We'll talk about some of the other happenings this weekend as well in just a moment. But first, let's touch on the proposed Dummerston gravel pit. Some have equated it to Brattleboro's skate park or Newfane's cell tower, as residents living in close proximity to the proposed area have raised some concerns, though at an Act 250 permit hearing for the proposed gravel pit, it seemed like some of those concerns were put to rest. Our content producer M. Richards was out on the scene to gather both a site visit and the hearing itself, led by Corey Freese of Stevens & Associates, the design firm responsible for this potential gravel pit under the application of Mike Renault and under the direction of Environmental Board Chair Michael Bernhardt, who led the hearing and directed folks on the site visit. Let's take a look.
This is the site visit for the proposed gravel pit hearing. This is strictly for information only. This is kind of like show and tell.
There were a lot of appropriate concerns, and the project was significantly revised in order to do our best to mitigate those concerns to the best of our ability.
All right, a few more things to wrap up as we break it down on this weekend edition of 545 Live. Montpelier Connection is back. This is a webcast show from the State House, hosted by Windham District 4 Rep Mike Mrwicki, keeping folks down in the south region of Vermont in touch with what's going on in the State House. He's got 2 new full-length episodes up that we can take a glance at here first. Let's get the preview here.
I think there's a lot of detail yet to be looked at and understood. Certainly, I'm a new legislator this year, so I've got a lot more to understand before I'm in a position to judge.
And as we wind down this ever so brief edition of 545 Live, hopefully we'll have time to take a look at that complete interview with Tristan directly following this broadcast, so stick around there. Speaking of things going on in town, it's the 10th annual Collegiate A Cappella Concert, a concert that sells out every year. In fact, probably sold out about 2 minutes after the 9th annual Collegiate A Cappella finished. Last year, BCTV was there, camera in hand, to try and pack our content specialist Rich Melanson in there with all the folks there. Barely had enough room to move a camera, but this year, it's the footage you're looking at on the screen now, but this year we've managed to secure spots for 2 cameras, and longtime BCTV producer Frederick Noyes will be there to lend his videography expertise to it. Expect to see that program at the end of this coming week. Of course, it'll be available on our video on demand at brattleboro.tv.org. A really spectacular event that goes on every year. Lends itself to some spectacular video footage, some spectacular audio. I'm sure everybody here will be excited to check it out. Again, a little footage there of last year's Collegiate A Cappella Concert, which you can catch up on, see what you're in for at tomorrow's performance. Again, brattleboro.tv.org, where there's video on demand for all, every stitch of our local programming and live streaming for this year, Channel 8, and our Government and Education sister channel, Channel 10. Wow, it's just the spiel at this point, the motor mouth is going a little bit too much. So I'll just wrap this up, turn it over to District 4 Rep Mike Mrwicki and his edition of Montpelier Connection, webcasting from the State House. In the meantime, thanks to Ian Keel, who sat down with Ron Stahley to try and get a few answers in this this intense school safety scare. Hopefully set parents' minds at ease just a little bit as we move forward. Also thanks to M. Richards, who was out on the scene to gather a look at the proposed site for the Dummerston gravel pit, and everybody else that makes 545 Live tick the way it does. I'm Roland Boyden saying, night everybody.
can't get up again. I remember what you said. The only thing that can keep us down is believing in the ground. I won't let this life be ruled by ghosts. I won't let this life be ruled by ghosts of all the other times I came so close. I keep living. Oh, 'cause someday is too far.